Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in, I'm going to try to do like radio answer, Hospitality Digital Marketing, dun, 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 show number 165, with my dearest, closest friends, Mr. Okay, sorry. I just had to go back with it. Mr. Edward StOnge with Flip2 and Mr. Stuart Butler with Fuel Travel. Gentlemen, how are you this morning?
Hey, guys.
Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is. It's still morning.
Do you notice something different about Mr. Ed, Stuart?
I'm just
He's
wearing
as
a sweater.
handsome as ever.
Just wearing a sweater.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
Is it cold there? Oh,
It is hot outside, freezing in our office.
Yeah. But you notice that there's not this large protrudence from his head right now.
I had it removed.
Mr. Ed is sporting his new AirPods.
nice. How you like them?
Yeah.
I actually like them quite a bit.
Yeah.
I hate Apple for how they finally got me to get them, but whatever.
What did they
That's
do?
Apple. They came out with the new iWatch, which I really liked, and so I got one with cellular, and I was like, oh man, I can leave the house without a phone if I just got AirPods.
There you go.
Damn Apple.
Well, you can still,
Damn Apple,
you still
you're
do the
clever.
Inspector Gadget. You do
Nah,
that
I can't
too.
do the Dick Tracy.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for going nostalgic on us, because I went Inspector Gadget for you, thinking that'd be a little closer to the genre time, but thanks for going back to Dick Tracy for me.
Yeah, no problem.
And Mr. Ed was asking me about the direct booking summit that I just I rolled in at 2 a.m. this morning because, gosh, they can't seem to get a direct flight on time. So
Wow. Nice.
by the time I get to bed, it was like 4 o'clock or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm on fumes right now, but all good. Actually, it was a lot of fun. I love going to conferences where it's like old home week, where you're meeting people that it's like, hey, it's like an Italian family get together. It's like, I know you. How do you doing?
I hear there was a particularly good panel with this consultant that led the panel.
I heard the same vicious self-propagated rumor myself.
Did you stay on the script, Lauren?
There was no. I did not stay on the
I
script.
assumed you would not.
No, but I actually, the panelists did seem to corral and rally under the banner that from our call versus what we had on stage, there was a heightened coordination that went on, which was pretty good. They kind of like woke up and go, oh, crap, this is actually a serious topic, and we should be talking a little bit more seriously about it, I guess. But no, it was kind of fun. You know who really did set the tone, and it was good, and I have to give him credit. It's not just because he's a good friend, but he really did just kind of break the ice for everybody, and that was Calvin. Calvin really came in and just blew everybody away with his candor from the stage, and that really helped an awful lot. Get people in the right mindset and stuff like that, because he basically, hey, Valyn, how are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. So who was the consultant on the panel? Because
it was Lauren.
It was me.
Oh.
And by the way, I might say I was the only one dressed in a suit. I mean, everyone had suits, but they didn't wear the tie. I went full tie, lapel pin. I tried to act the part.
That's because you're old.
Well,
Okay.
thank you
Where
for
was
putting
it,
that
Lauren?
back in context. I thought it's better to be overdressed than underdressed, and it didn't work out because, man, it was hot in Dallas again. It was a warm, but it was nice. And we were at the Statler.
Hot in Dallas. Oh.
I kind of had this hope that it was going to be in the upper 80s rather than like the upper 90s. But no, Dallas
sweater like Ed is.
Like
Yeah,
it is no.
Ed,
And
where are you?
I'm in my office. It is hot outside, but it is freezing in here. I think the AC is broken in the on position. It is uncomfortably cold, so I'm wearing shorts and a sweater. This is like my hide it in my desk sweater for just the days that it turns into an icebox here.
Nice.
Now I have to say that Ed was in at the Digital Booking Summit in spirit, because he got mentioned no less than 4 times from the stage.
Really?
So he doesn't have to throw money out there anymore. He just shows up at conferences. They refer to him 4 times off the stage. I called him each time on it. So it's amazing that actually Ed's head is fitting in good perspective right now. Because it's just this massive, huge head thing going on.
People worried when the 3rd time he was mentioned, he just magically appeared. I mean, he's often
in
reminding me
succession,
of
though.
Beetlejuice a lot of
See,
times.
well,
Yeah,
that was my question: is are you thinking Beetlejuice or Candyman? Because
it's like a weird combination of the two, I think.
Yeah, you have to say it in sequence. It happened far enough apart that it didn't make the magic happen. It was
That's
there
right.
was a separation of church and state on that
So-
one. But
Are we on the reservation yet?
no, we're just saying hi to everybody because now Mr. Tim's joining us. We're just kind of in the warm and fuzzy part of the conversation to it. But
we're in the
no,
part
and
that
Mr.
people complain about.
Yeah, and Mr. Ed, I didn't really push you were not going to join the show because you weren't going to follow the rules things as much as I should have last week. I should have been a little bit more adamant that you refused to join the show.
Tim's
Multiplying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's multi-Tims.
Yes, but I'm going to work on that. I'm actually trying to get a little less.
The cloning machine is working well today.
Exactly.
Some stuff's going to get done. Mr. Tim, how are you, sir? Good morning.
Yet, as a college roommate of mine once said, a little Tim goes a long way. So I don't know if there's any more of that.
Hey, with that in mind, we want to tell our listeners, viewers, watchers, whatever you want to call them, because there are a collective amount of it. Mr. Robert's not here to give us the whole list to it, but I wanted to tackle first the Airbnb topic, if we could, because of the overvaluation that they're talking about and their sense of purpose when they do that. And then I thought, just out of curiosity, when it came to the list, that we could hit on the intermediary aspect of the Hopper Nabs, the number one mobile travel marketplace in the world comment. And then if we could go into the wonderful article about the role the hotels will play in the future of distribution, because it actually does cover Calvin's presentation, where he did make some really cool statements and I have some cool notes about it. So if we can, maybe those would be the first early topics that would be actually fun to do. Did anybody get a chance to peruse the Airbnb discussion by chance?
I did. He has a dog named Ossobuco.
That was a sheep, I thought.
No, it was his dog that was under his desk licking
Maybe
his
it was
black.
a sheepdog.
It was a.
It was
bit
a
of
sheep. Okay, it was a sheep.
It was a bit of a.
I thought it was.
fluffy,
I thought he was in a herd of sheep, experiencing a unique moment that Airbnb is.
And this is how you know all of us, only peruse these articles.
Yeah.
Like now, this new methodology that we're using is exposing the fact that none of us at all put any effort into this show prior to it happening. So
Oh, gosh,
dog
this
is,
is-
the dog is a sheltie.
Fortunately, because this is the first article, it is the only article that I read at least the first 3 paragraphs of. And he was watching a marketing video on an iPhone that his team had built about their tour in Ireland, while his dog named Ossobuco was licking his black shoes, which just
Why is the
I
dog
don't know.
wearing shoes?
I don't know whether. I mean, it's quite the fluff piece. Forbes,
It is.
Forbes wanted to like spin this poetic or something. I mean,
It was really weird. The whole thing was just contrived. If you looked at like what they were wearing, they were all kind of trying to be this cool thing. Like all of them had sneakers on instead of, or different kind of shoes than you would think with their outfit. It just, I don't know, just left a bad taste in my mouth. The whole article.
Yeah, it was.
It does remind me a lot of the fact that they're just trying to show up at the party late and be fashionably late at the same time. And yes, it was a leading question to the point that it was ridiculous in the article point that they were trying to identify themselves as being that kind of trendy, back to the core of what Airbnb made Airbnb. But their number fluctuations, they're trying to think they're going to go to 500,000 people or 500 million people by 2020. What is it? They say by 2028, is it? They think they're going to go to that many people. They only hit 100 million so far. So it's like, it's pretty ambitious.
Have a big inventory problem to get to that point, big inventory problem, which is why
I'm telling you, and I've said it all along, this is why they have not gone IPO yet, is because they do not want the scrutiny of analysts over analyzing their actual market situation. Right now, you can be all lovely about what they're doing and focus on the fluff because, you're not really advising a market on what's real. But man, you run them through real industry analysis and you do realize that, oh, wait, we can see all the limitations in their inventory. So there's a point where no matter how much demand they create, they can't fulfill it. And that's still a challenge they have not gotten over.
Yeah.
And probably never will. Realistically.
Why are they?
Right.
One of the
Why are they
challenges they'll
running?
always have with inventory is that, obviously when the economy is bad, there's a lot of folks who will say, let me make this spare room available, let me clear out of my apartment for a weekend, etc.
Right.
When the economy is good, there's not as much need for people to want to do that. So they're going to struggle with inventory, whenever the economy is in a good place, they're going to have an inventory problem.
Right. And some of the solutions they've come up with to try to resolve that by working with different types of hosts, right? So people that are purposely building apartment complexes to put on Airbnb. There's pressure coming from government to prevent that kind of thing because it's having a negative effect on those ecosystems. So I think some of their short-term fixes, long-term, are going to backfire. It's accelerating, certainly certain municipalities are accelerating their attack on Airbnb. And you see some big cities now, the number of available inventory is shrinking significantly because of
Yeah, Mr. Robert. I do want to ask a question. Why are they running one leg short of a three-legged race when it comes to their sea-level suite being missing pieces to this?
I don't have a CFO at the moment, right?
Yeah. Why is it so hard for them to find the right fit for what they're wanting to do, or even they're trying? Because the way it sounds like is they're blowing off their venture capitalist goals to be this holistic new 21st century, as he calls it, company. Okay. And on top of that, he doesn't even have the team together to really make that vision a functional reality. It just seems really odd that he's boasting what he's planning on doing, yet not really actually having the tools or the team members to actually get it done. What's going on with the market for that to happen?
Yeah. And let's not forget
they've ever had a CMO.
They've
never had a CMO
either.
They did have Chip
Conley. They had one. Okay.
But they've grown organically, right? They grew through three guys that weren't really experienced in business in their mid-20s when they created it, kind of on a happenstance thing where they started renting out a room in their apartment. They've gotten to where they are through being scrappy, but also having a really good user interface. Better than some
of the amount of money that they've burned being scrappy.
Well,
or organic.
Well,
I guess
what I mean by that is it's not necessarily strategic, right? They haven't sat down and come up with some big strategic plan. It's kind of flying by the seat of their pants, scrappy. Not bootstrap scrappy. So
in some instances, their growth has been somewhat reactive, right? As they've run into obstacles in various regulatory bodies or various geographic regions, they've had to sort of take a left turn, which has had an impact, positive or negative, in some cases, on their growth. So it's reactive in a way which it could be a piece of being scrappy. But Ed has a point. They've had tremendous amount of money they've gone through, and a lot of it is on they have a great user interface. They really do.
Absolutely.
So.
But that also is going to be a
Rhode
weakness.
Island School of Design.
Yeah, they're going to have this issue, and I'm a big believer in this idea that your greatest strengths are also your greatest weaknesses, right? They have pulled in an enormous sum of money from an enormous number of venture capital firms and things along those lines, who are expecting to get that money back. And so they're under significant pressure to actually produce a product and a service that, when they go public and things like that, these guys are going to make their 10x, they're going to make their 50x or whatever. So they're under a lot of pressure to show that they have a sustainable business within a limited period of time, right? This isn't going to be a story we're talking about 10 years from now. They will have gone public and they will have returned, capital to the investors, or they will have gone public and Chesky will be, on the speaker circuit talking about all the lessons he learned before they threw him out on his ear, right?
Right.
I mean, that's a real challenge that they have to live with right now.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't help when the CEO is saying stuff like, "It's not really all about making money. It's more about making a difference." And this utopian kind of view.
Right.
But they're trying to be like Amazon. They're trying to be Bezos convinced Wall Street. Forget the earnings, right? This is a long-term play. If you aren't gonna, if you want quarterly earnings and all that stuff, go put your money somewhere else. We aren't doing that, and it worked out fairly well. Now, there's a massive problem that they do not have the margins that Amazon has, right? Because their
they don't have the inventory of
product.
Well,
that's
no,
right. exactly
but they
right.
are only getting 3% from the hosts, right?
Well,
Now they're
today,
getting
until they
12% today. Yeah, but it's 12% from theoretically from the guest, right?
Right.
But still, all that is not necessarily going. Now they're getting 20% on the experiences side, so that's a little bit more standard margin. But yeah, they've got issues because they aren't going to have the ability to really increase those fees to guests, right? Because now all this stuff is getting distributed on Expedia and other platforms and things like that. So guest fees getting pushed somehow doesn't really work out. So they're going to get, there's a little bit of a pinch there for how they increase those fees on the supply side. So.
Plus, they're constrained in the supply they can actually have access to, right? So,
well, and that's the
point,
problem
right?
that keeps them from going public, because that is the metric that everyone on Wall Street will be screaming about, is the constraint of inventory, which means there is only so much growth on the table at any given time, which Wall Street hates having to hear about anything except for growth.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how Amazon was successful, because yes, they didn't have profits, but they had tremendous growth year over year.
Right.
Yep. And you couldn't actually identify how much growth was possible, because there was just so much.
There was no ceiling yet.
Well, and the other key to Amazon was Amazon Web Services, right? That is the gift that keeps on giving. Because not only did it subsidize their whole IT,
but that wasn't an early key for them.
Right, that came later.
Oh no,
right.
no,
that was
incredibly
important.
important.
That was a hugely important when they moved into
Airbnb
their third
web
growth
services
stage.
Will probably be year 2 after being public.
But what they're going to do is they're going to lease out your computers and resell it to other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that basically blockchain?
That's funny.
That's
5G,
blockchain in hospitality.
5G, blockchain, Bitcoin.
When Ed releases his fully immersive VR blockchain, headset,
That's right.
we'll know why he's been saying all these things. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. If you read that article, that the valuation is larger than Expedia's right now, which they don't have the margins, they don't have the growth potential, they don't have the volume that Expedia does. It's smoke and mirrors, and exactly right. When it's supervised, that'll fizzle away.
They've got the hipsters. The hipsters love them.
And they don't really have
back off that for 1
competition.
second, though. Can we back off that for 1 second? Because, let's be fair. Airbnb is a good product. It is right?
No question.
We're having a discussion about, the financial reality versus the product reality, right? Like, as a product, it's a good product. As a service to consumers, it's a good service.
But
and I say this as a guy who loves hotels. It is just that reality that their pressures are coming from financial places, not from their inability to serve the needs of customers.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how good it is, though, because you can rip that off. Right. And it's already been not ripped off. It's been influencing design amongst all the players in the industry. It's been influencing business changes throughout the industry. And so their problem is they haven't hit escape velocity yet. They haven't hit that point where you can't catch them. So, that's risky. Okay. And their challenge is going to hit, in order to hit escape velocity, you need to have some massive growth potential in the short term, which they're restricted in.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But let me
twist the conversation.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with my 27-year-old daughter. The folks at I won't go into the White Lodging Starwood debacle of her getting her points, but she wound up.
Still a scar.
Oh no, it still hasn't been
like
resolved.
an open wound, actually.
Yeah, she wound up getting 1/3. Wait, she wound up getting 33,000 points instead of 100,000 points.
I thought we were going to talk about this.
No. I've got a point.
And next we're going to hear about his Buick. Anyway,
that's right, exactly. No, but I do have, as most times, I can't confirm always. Most of the time I have a point. So, She
People
basically
say that about me
It
too.
sometimes takes 5 or 6
No.
episodes for it to become apparent.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Robert.
But,
Go ahead.
but the
Go ahead, Robert.
conversation
Go ahead.
for 70,000 star point, or now Marriott reward points, right? Which I think most people would argue is a pretty decent amount. She basically said, to really go fight for it, she goes, we just stay at Airbnbs. It's not even really that important.
Right.
So when you've got a 27-year-old who's in the prime, when you are marketing to people, you want to get people right when they are married. It's a life change. Once they start behaving at that point, they are in those tracks for decades. And she's like, Marriott's kind of irrelevant to her. She's fine with Airbnb. That's where she goes.
When she has
to.
kids, that might change again, though. That's another
Right.
Right.
I don't-
that's-
When
no,
room
those are the
service
things.
becomes
Those are
important,
things when you go, it's you go to college, you get married, you have children, those sorts of main life events. But in that period, that's pretty.
So let me
big.
twist this Airbnb conversation a little bit as to, so how do you? I'll ask everyone. It's like, how do you battle from a hotel's perspective the Airbnb effect? What are strategies that you think can be used or have been used successfully that places a hotel in line being able to combat this? What you just pointed out, Robert, the variation of choice that depending upon whatever cycle in life they are in, the Airbnb consideration. What are some things that are being done by people that battle this Airbnb presence in your market? It's a dynamic inventory, and which is a painful thing to fight against when it comes to ADR abilities. Okay, and it's always at the time that you have the opportunity of demand, because that's what brings in the dynamic inventory. They don't introduce inventory unless there's a need for it. So you have these hosts and things that bring it in. What are you guys doing, or what have you seen being done that combats the strategies against this type of player in your market space?
Two key questions. A, what do hotels do better than Airbnb?
That's right.
And how do you execute on those points flawlessly, right?
Right.
To
If you're a
really
professional-
do those very, very well.
And
If
I
you're a
also think
professional hotelier who can't.
to water down the effect Airbnb has on your market, you need to understand why a traveler would choose an Airbnb over you, and identify those different reasons and go after the ones you can. So don't go after Airbnb as a whole. Go after the ones that are up for grabs. And trust me, there are many of Airbnb's customers that are up for grabs. So that's one, is have a strategy like that. Two, stop marketing yourself like a faceless, cold organization, and start pointing out the fact that you're one of the largest employers of locals in that area that are passionate and, bring hospitality back to marketing.
Yep.
Right.
100%
Absolutely.
agree.
You're a professional hotelier. These are amateur hosts. If you're struggling to compete against those amateur hosts, we need to talk about what you're doing wrong at your property.
Yeah, you need a lesson in hospitality. I think consistency of product is an angle we go at a lot. Offerings, on-site amenities is something we leverage a lot as well. But your
lack of webcams in the bathrooms. I mean, there's a lot of
privacy and security.
Certain markets, Ed, I don't know. There's, people want to be influencers. So, I don't know.
For sure. But it does come down to hospitality and is the guest going to get a better experience? And leveraging tools like Flip2 to show that authentic story of the guests that are staying is really powerful against Airbnb.
So in this direct booking summit that I was just in, there was people that were raising the fact that they were proud to have joined the Airbnb platform as hotels.
Sure.
They were boasting that this was a solution process to them. Is that a viable choice, or is that a default, or join the enemy? Rather switch than fight.
It's just another distribution channel. I don't see nothing wrong with it.
I see nothing wrong with it. I mean, if
you have to surrender your common space.
I'm sorry?
Even if you have to surrender your common space, I mean, that's the caveat you have to play, that if you join, your common space turns into all Airbnb co-host space.
I think you deal with that when it becomes a problem, right? I haven't heard a property that's on Airbnb that's having a significant volume of Airbnb has come and utilize that space. But even if they do, then, monetize it. I'd rather other people came in and had a drink at the bar and places like that. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, because sometimes hotel bars and cafes are wastelands, right? And who wants to go in there because there's not enough traffic from the street?
And then you have the ability to sell them staying at the property next time. The convenience, because now they don't have to walk. You could
stumble up to your room and
exactly.
stumble into
Right,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But just don't become beholden to that one channel. Don't start relying on it for 50% of your business. I mean,
no, instead become beholden to Booking.com.
They're already beholden to that. It's always good to look for other channels, other distribution channels. I don't think there's anything.
Absolutely. I mean, before clearly we have issues with Booking.com and the like, but realistically, before Booking.com came into the marketplace, we were mainly dealing with Expedia. Booking.com coming into the marketplace is in some ways the best thing that happened to a lot of hotels, because think about what Expedia's margins were. Think about what Expedia's margins were.
Cancellations without penalties and
completely understood. But I mean, think about what margins were with Expedia before Booking.com entered the market, right?
No question.
Having Airbnb in the market, having other folks get deeper into the market like Google or all is a good thing for hotels because it creates more competition from a distribution perspective.
Yeah.
I wonder how much the Airbnb though, talking to that, if we want to get brainy here for a sec. So if we're saying that Airbnb had any impact on margins of an Expedia or Booking.com, I wonder how much of that is actually counteracted by the fact that Airbnb developed a level of inventory that now has been added to the inventory of Expedia and Booking.com. So did it really have the same type of competitive impact on them as they've had on each other? Because, Booking.com, when it came, they were just stealing the same inventory that Expedia had, where Airbnb came and developed up a new inventory.
Yeah. Well, you could argue some of that inventory was on VRBO and HomeAway and places.
Yeah, there was already out there to some market extent too, but I'll add some tacticals.
They gave it more mind share. They certainly gave it more mind share.
Well, actually, in effect, they did what Expedia did. They streamlined the process of being able to reach that inventory, where before it was more of a unique challenge of discovery of finding the inventory. But I'll add some tacticals to it, is that if you look at platforms like AirDNA, which just expose kind of the data side of the Airbnb in your market, you can see lead times for people that Airbnb is typical for in your market. You can see the restrictive policy that associated with your market. You can see the duration of stay in your market. And I believe it was it Tim, you that pointed out that the features of what you do better than somebody else. If you see those things, combat them exactly for what they are. Be in the space when they're when they are in consideration, and show your value proposition and compare it to theirs. Show if it is a length of stay restriction plus or minus. Play both sides of that conversation. That if you have the same length of stay options that Airbnb is known for, then show the value proposition of the professional hosting that you are as a hospitality professional. That's fine. And value proposition, common space, location, whatever. Okay. And also from the financial point of view, the logistics of being able to cancel, change, alter, vary, which are restrictive policy associations associated with Airbnb. If you hit them when they're in the consideration phase, and then you really validate your value proposition into the short term, where Airbnb is totally inept in, that it is not a short-term decision. You don't land on a plane and decide, do I want to change where I stay in an Airbnb mindset? It's just not something done, nor do you do it just even a few days beforehand with any real consideration. Those are value propositions. If you find those spots of opportunity, you really can combat this dynamic inventory. Oh my gosh, people have other things to worry about, whatever have you, in a much more productive way. You still won't beat the 27-year-old who doesn't like they don't get their points from their wedding, which they should have earnestly deserved from the no-name hotel ownership group that we won't refer to again. But you get to drive a Buick.
They need to be shamed.
Anyway,
there needs to be a scarlet letter.
We jumped over brands real quickly because I wanted to get to the Hopper one. The Hopper nabs 100 million, wants to be number one mobile price. Robert, you want to point that was since you grabbed the article? I'm typing back to some of this in Facebook right now. So
I like how Lauren's like, let's talk about this topic that I didn't read about, but I picked. So Robert, you
I read. Unlike you, Mr. Poopy Head, I actually read this one because I have a comment about it later on, mind you.
There are different ways to approach. Well, let's just look at even comedy, right? You can have sketch comedy where it's prepped like Saturday Night Live, or you can have improv, right? Well, Lauren's more of an improv guy, so it's fine.
Yeah, shoot from the hip. Who cares whether it's accurate or not? That's me.
Exactly. So Anyway, so which one, Hopper?
Yeah.
Hopper gets 100 million. Hopper has the most patient investors
Ever.
I've ever seen. Because Valyn, when did Frederick start that off? 2008,
Like 2007, 2008, somewhere around.
Yeah, and they've got what they have 140 million, something like that, in before. I mean, they're getting up to 200, $250 million of investment, but they started, and they've pivoted a couple times. First, they started with trying to be this big content repository, and they always had kind of the AI end of it. But I think they really hit on their airfare prediction technology. Works pretty well with the notifications. I mean, I'm pretty much relying on it, aside from the fact that Southwest is not playing with them. If Southwest was playing, it's a pretty compelling business from an airfare prediction standpoint. I mean, it's really saying, nope, it's at 171 right now. We think it's going to go $20 lower. So you can make a decision going, oh, it's $20. I'll lock in the 171, or you hang in there for something better. But on the reason I added this on the hospitality side is, right now they have 1,600 hotels. They were testing kind of the hotel stuff in New York. They pulled back. I don't know if it's actually currently on the app anymore. And again, I'm not sure if I'm in A/B testing or what's happening with it, but I can't see the hotel stuff on my app. But they said they're going to 100,000 hotels by the end of the year. That is a pretty big hockey stick. So
yeah, you want to know how they're doing that? I'm sure they're just hooking up to the GDS.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
because there's no way they're doing negotiated contracts with that many.
No,
hotels.
they aren't.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, I know. Then that's how they started off, was being really specific rates, specific highly curated properties. Scott Brodos has been running that operation. Scott's a really bright former Sabre, and where else was he? Was he with Travel Tripper, I think, for a while, and he's been around. So he's really smart guy. But that is a tough process from a business development standpoint.
Well, last year at Focusrite, Fred did a really great presentation of why it's harder to do predictions for hotel prices than predictions for airline prices. And he followed it up with some just fascinating graphics where he basically said airline carriers work in a certain way because they're required to work in a certain way because they have regulations to manage and slots to hit at airports. And so it's easier to predict. There are fewer outliers, right? Fewer negatives that on their predictions. Whereas with hotels, cancellation policies, short-term bookings, all of that kind of stuff, he said, just plays havoc with what we've been trying to do to predict hotel prices, like we can predict airline prices. And he basically put up a big graphic over time, a big animated graphic over time that showed millions of data points and how prices fluctuated in the hotel space. And I think they just used like 2 markets in the U.S. And it showed visually how it was practically impossible to figure out to forecast pricing for hotels.
Yeah. Right. Chaos theory should be the driving force behind a lot of this.
So he said at that point, airline for now. So this was a year ago, right? So he said we will move forward with our airline predictability and pricing because the data is predictable. We actually can know that with some level of confidence we can do it. He said, we don't have that level of confidence with hotels. Right. So basically a year ago, he said at Focusrite, we're just going to be a booking engine.
Yeah.
Well, and if they only have 100,000 hotels, they're not going to have enough data to start making good predictions for some time. Anyway.
Well, here's the other thing I'm just going to say right now. If they do get traction and you're a hotel, this is the worst thing that could have happened to you because they're going to expose all of your
prices. It's the worst thing that can happen for bad revenue managers.
Bad revenue managers.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the big difference between the hotel industry and the airline industry. The airline industry has a strategy when it comes to rate that's tied to inventory and demand.
That is perhaps one of the saddest statements ever mentioned. Yeah. Pricing, the industry lacks pricing strategy and discipline.
It does. I mean, it
absolutely does.
It's plenty of them have strategy. I think it's the discipline side of it is the bigger issue.
Yeah.
The amount of knee-jerk reaction that happens over and over and over again that causes bad pricing behavior over and over and over again.
Well,
we haven't learned the lesson of rate transparency. We haven't learned the lesson of the fact that every customer knows every price for every room when it matters to them. They know more about your prices than your employees do because they have more incentive to. And you're exactly right. Every time we look at a weekend and go, boy, we're a little light, we go ahead and drop rate. I mean, that is just shooting ourselves in the foot, reloading and firing again and again and again.
Right.
And by the multiple stakeholders, right? So that's my thing. Structural flaw in the hospitality industry. Everybody has an opinion, and everybody actually has, not only do they have an opinion, they have some authority. Whereas in the airline space, we don't get that.
Completely different goals.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So for that, we'll never have discipline. We'll be lucky if we'll get some, right? But we'll never work like the airlines do because
as an industry.
Structure is different.
The example of the lack of rate discipline, look at the best rate membership campaigns of the Book Directs by the Marriotts and the Hiltons, and just peruse through this alleged best rate on any of their sites, and you will see that their hotels are like doing the token minimum of like, oh, I'm just going to tie that rate. No, not even. Like it's bad. It's like pennies different in some cases, and then you expand the rate choices and you look, and AAA is cheaper, AARP is cheaper.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're actually saying as a hotel that you value AAA members more than you value your own brand loyalty card. And that is, I mean, go look now. I guarantee you 4 out of the first 5 hotels you pick, that will be the case.
And I'm going to say to this, if AAA has done anything to drive demand for any property anywhere in the last 5 years, I will eat my hat. Any hat you give me, I will eat. I won't even put like Cholula on it. I will just sit here and take bites out of it and swallow it down because AAA is not.
I'm going to drop off and call a guy at AAA. He's got to have one.
I'm going to find a case study.
There's got to be one. Okay. No, you said any. No. We'll find one.
But the point is, right, what AAA does, and I don't mean to knock AAA, but the reality is, what happens is the guest shows up and says, oh, what discounts do you have? Wait, let me pull out my AAA card. Let me pull out my ARP card. Let me pull out my
ask for the card. It's a walk rate. It's
That's
just
what I'm saying, right? Come on.
And when Robert walks in, it's an automatic AARP rate. I mean, come on. It's
Are you saying you don't read the AAA magazine to get all your vacation ideas?
It's a driver.
I'm sorry. What's AAA magazine?
Oh my God! Oh, I think it's Texas Highways here. It's a riveting read.
7-year-old daughter, Robert. She'll say,
yeah, I know. Exactly.
What the hell is AAA?
Is that a rehab facility or what?
Right. Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
Alcoholics Anonymous again.
Yeah, I mean, right.
I will say with Hopper though,
I have strong opinions.
One thing I enjoy with Hopper, I do truly enjoy the fact that with the predictive modeling, if you in the world of scraping, the data acquisition that they have for modeling is really cool. Because they do have a neat model for what they create in their heat maps for demand by calendar date is really, to Robert's point, other than Southwest Air, really is an indicative of market interest when you're looking at the rate cycles and so forth. And if you're into the world of grabbing data from sites that aren't so willing to give it, that's a great source because it does give you some great insights.
So the thing I'll say to anyone thinking about putting money into Hopper is just realize that once they prove the consumer case, like you realize Expedia and Booking.com can immediately mimic that functionality
well,
and actually probably better.
They would first have to aggregate all the data. So that's the one thing that's difficult to recreate, right? So They do.
They have a lot of data. Yeah.
They do,
Go ahead,
but
Valyn.
are they applying the same type of algorithms and structural components that Hopper has done, right?
Algorithms aren't the hard part. It's actually gathering the data and having the data structures, which
Right.
I guarantee you they
Well,
already
that's what Valyn's
built
saying. If you'd let her finish. Go ahead, Valyn.
Well, they've got, sure, yeah, of course they've got the data, but do they know how to do it? So that's what Hopper has been looking at for 10 years. Not that I'm a big fan and I'm not invested, but I mean, what Hopper's been doing for 10 years is figuring out what to do with the data. So Expedia and Booking have been sitting on it, and they use it for retailing purposes to ensure that they present offers that people are going to take. But what Hopper's been doing with it is a little different. Could they do it? Sure. They would have to expend some time and effort and money to get it done.
Well, and they don't.
all things they have though, like endless amounts of. Like, this is my point. This is why I always caution anyone who invests in stuff in travel is don't invest in something that once you prove it's a good idea, Expedia can rip it off. Because Expedia, if anything, they've proven over time, technologically, they're capable of doing anything. And with their scale now, like, I don't think it would take them very long. Once Hopper cracks the code on, figuring out the hotel pricing, one of two things are going to happen. Expedia will either build it or will go in and attempt to buy them.
Right.
Yeah, isn't that Hopper's strategy from day one? Yeah, that's probably what their investors are looking for. Because
with the amount of money they've raised, an acquisition like that can't be because then they would just be a feature acquisition. They're not anything
they
more.
Can't believe they're going to get their return by just scaling the business. They can't believe, even though
they're raising money like that's the path.
I know, but even though they've said these delusions of grandeur things like they're going to be the number one mobile booking source or what, it's crazy. They don't have that opportunity.
What happens if mobile's not here in 3 years?
I did think that they are going all in on mobile when we're kind of leaning away from mobile, where, Apple's even said in the next 10 years, they're not going to be giving out, selling the phone style device. It's going to be some kind of, implant or something a little different. So.
Actually, Ed is showing us the future right now. He's just not using it. No, turn your head.
Sweater is the future.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is the wearable of the future. And it
is certainly one of them. No. I can speak to this one for real. I can't show it today because I'm wearing these, right? You guys know I talk about this. I wear hearing aids, right? I am hard of hearing. I wear hearing aids. They are connected via Bluetooth to my phone, and I converse with my phone all the time without ever taking it out of my pocket. The upside is I actually am doing the kind of stuff you saw people do in Her. It isn't always perfect. I'm talking to Siri, which can be dodgy and all this other kind of stuff. But when it works, it's exactly the experience you want, right? It's precisely. Now,
I actually find myself wanting to wear these in my car rather than my phone to the car's.
We're going to need places where you're going to need a screen. I mean, I don't think the phone is going away. I don't think screens are going away. But in the context where voice works correctly and is the appropriate experience, it's just better. It's just flat out better across the board.
Oh yeah. Well, no,
I do it all the time because I have no choice but to do it.
I am testing Bluetooth wireless headsets right now as part of a little market research thing that I was approached with, which is great. And I've only done one.
Tell your wife that's why we're buying all this technology, dear.
No. They're giving it to me for free.
That. So. My wife stopped buying that story a while ago.
I have 4 sets of earpieces, and I try one a week. I don't even know what the other 3 are because of the blind testing nature of it. But the first one, the Samsung Iconics 2018, very good. I mean, with the AirPods, you have the little thing hanging down. These things fit totally in your ear. Very comfortable. Very good sound. The microphones, very good. Ed, you sound a little bit underwater. I mean,
I was going to say that. He's a little hollow,
yeah, they're not perfect by any means. That's for sure. Although the Bluetooth connection on them is fantastic.
Yeah, the
Yes.
Samsung ones, really good sound, and a feature where you could keep them in your ears, and there's an ambient noise setting. So because they have microphones in them, right, it will turn that up, so you can wear them all the time if you're driving, even because you can turn it to hear the outside sounds, which is really interesting tech.
I wish I had this I wish I had them in front of me, because literally the hearing aids I wear, that's exactly what they are, right? And they have their problems. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like everybody should go out and buy hearing aids by any stretch. I am saying that. Trust me, you'd be happier if you didn't have to have them. But the things that they actually make better, they make a lot better. And I don't just mean hearing stuff. I mean interacting with devices and things like that. It's just a better experience. And everything you're describing, I can actually tap a button on my phone, change a setting for different experiences, right? I'm in a theater, I want to hear something different than I'm in a restaurant, I want to hear the person across the table from me. It makes an enormous difference. And I interact with everything via voice because they have microphones, so they pick up me talking and feed it back to my phone.
Tim's favorite setting is the Crown Vic setting, which is when he's sitting outside of a building and wants to spy on the people inside.
So it's funny that you say this, Ed. I can actually place my phone, if we were in a crowded place and you were at one end of the table and I was at the other, I could set my phone in front of you, and I would hear you perfectly because it would be the remote microphone.
See, look at that.
To my hearing.
Yeah.
So So keep that in mind if we're ever in a meeting and I set my phone down in front of you.
Yep, I will sit there and tap the table.
Exactly.
And take selfies. Yeah.
Exactly. Now I just need synthetic memory so I can remember all the things I can hear again.
So this one is the one that I got the most that I have comments on because I was there and I witnessed it. And might I say, Mr. Ed, I'm actually pretty happy that that the guy that made this article that was talking about Calvin at the Direct Booking Summit quoted everybody on my panel except for me, which just goes to show you that just because I'm on stage does not mean I have the most things to say. I was a great moderator. I actually had the least to say, and they had the most, which is not me, but it worked out.
To
pretty
be
good.
fair, that's not an indication of how much you said, but really the lack of quality in what you said.
Well, that is a
Well said. Well said. You're absolutely right. I was all over the place, but nothing was worth quoting.
That's right.
And how many shots had you had before you hit stage?
Well, it's not a matter of how many; it's whether I stopped in between any of them. That was a real key element to that. But no, actually, and I think I mentioned this on the pre-show before when I was talking to Ed. Calvin really warmed up the conversation. I do have to give credit to the summit. These things can so quickly go to sales pitches on stage, and they didn't. They really tried to keep it to context. That said, I had issues with some of the presentations as being how helpful they were. Because sometimes they were really just exacerbating the problem that they were supposedly solving by just amplifying their own issues and not really giving any solutions to it. So that said, the conversations from Calvin. Calvin was the first opening keynote person, and Calvin, for those who know him and so forth, is very candid about how he talks. And that went a long way in setting the tone. I think if he hadn't done what he did, I think the conference would have been a little stodgier, a little less helpful in its times that it was helpful. But he made some really excellent points. And I want to say one statement that didn't get quoted in the article that was very profound. He says, we are going from a public rate system to a private rate system. That we are going to go from here's my rate for all to see, and even to the segmented channels that we're presenting them on, to here is your rate because of what you are to us, whether it be student, AAA, which is a very key motivator and rate strategy, I know, because Tim made that very clear.
Well, they actually have a lot of roadside
the only
selection, so they may actually have a few hotels that AAA has helped.
Well, there you go. But the idea of it being a kind of a retail mentality that says, look, because of whom you are, where you are, your frequency, your lack of frequency, whatever those modifiers become, the rate that you're offered at the time that you connect with us or cross our path is customized to whom you are for us, compared to the now current, rate strategies, channels, opportunities, comparison. Because the other comments that I want to get to out of this article is the blatant, and we've known this for a while, rate parity problems and the undercutting and the wholesalers going out and the affiliates and so forth that are out there. And there were some cool, not tools to use. I'm not trying to propose any tools, as it is the concept of including this rate dilution in your rate revenue strategies, because a lot of times they ring the bell with top line revenue. Hey, I brought in this much on this channel. Ding, 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 ding. And they walk away beating their chest like Tarzan. But what you get is a 65% cancellation for that particular channel, or 35% rate dilution you don't get from that channel, or whatever all those things are. They're not being calculated into the true value of what that channel represents. So with that being said, that's the article I would love to talk about, because there is a lot of highlighted points that they came out in some stats that I thought were pretty cool. But anyway, what you guys thought?
To start with that idea, I will say this. I guarantee you, as hotels transition into that personalized rate strategy, there will be services that come out that figure out how to educate the consumer on which lie to tell the hotel to get the best rate. And then there will be arguments about whether or not that's ethical, that the consumer is lying to the hotel to get a better rate. That'll be fun.
I don't know, man. I feel like
about that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. I would say the other part of this is where's the technology that's going to support that, right? So there are
education that's going to support that.
Well, there's actually, I mean, from the price side,
Valyn, finish what you were saying.
Guy Val, sorry, you made a great statement.
Do you feel like my protector today, Tim?
No, I just want to, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to be heard, and some folks, get hurt a lot.
So, I mean, this ability to sell, by person or by traits it's hard to do. And there are a lot of legacy CRSs and then IBs that sit on top of CRSs that have a difficult time doing that. And mostly the data layer is fine, or the presentation layer is fine, but there's not a lot of data underneath it, or not enough connections to data sources underneath it to really allow hotels to do what he's talking about. I mean, Amadeus's new GRS, yeah, maybe. The more modern architected solutions, maybe. But that
still need good data, though. They need good data from all of these different sources. And that's even when the stuff is plugged in, the plumbing's working, you've got crap flowing through those pipes, right?
Right. But I would say to Ed's point about guests figuring out how to represent themselves so they get the right rate. I mean, that happens today, right? I have friends who use illicit corporate codes to book at hotels. Yeah. I have friends who book the AAA rate, even though they're not AAA members, counting on the fact that the front desk agent isn't going to check. And so there's an operational impact on something like this as well, which is, and maybe we're going to get there anyway because of data privacy and regulatory issues where the hotel has to know who you are anyway. But then if you got mobile check-in, then you're not talking to anybody when you get there. So how do you validate when you start doing this personal selling? How do you validate that person is who that person, who you want them
and
to
what
be?
What hotels want to have the friction in the arrival process or whatever. Exactly. I'm sorry, I need to see your ID. Right. Sort of thing. That's they want to avoid that. So the guest is always right. So they will flow through and be able. You will have a group of guests who will certainly capitalize on this opportunity.
Well, and it comes down to this idea of, I think personalized pricing makes a lot of sense, and certainly is something that's going to get there. But we always have to go back to what's the value to the guest, right? If this is just about discounting, if this is just about we're giving you a different price and the like, and price discrimination has been around for a long time. People are fine with price discrimination if they understand why, what am I doing that gets me that value, et cetera. But a lot of this, we got to go back to what value exists there, and are we actually delivering on that in such a way that makes the price hold up, regardless of who the guest is.
And they are not okay with price discrimination when they feel that they have unnecessarily paid a higher price than someone else for whatever reason. They are very unokay with that.
And I promise you that in the minds of the people who are praying for the personalized price, they're not thinking about how it adds value to the guest.
Right.
They're thinking about how it adds value to their bottom line.
Right.
Right. Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like we're going down the road. We do a lot, and a lot of conferences do this, where they kind of paint this utopian picture of what the future is going to be without really doing a gut check on is it realistic, is it viable? I mean, we just had a conversation 5 minutes ago about the fact that most revenue managers are doing a terrible job. They're discounting rates at the last minute. They don't have rate parity on all their distribution channels. So now we're saying we're going to make it infinitely more complex by making it personalized pricing. I mean, at best, at best, what it's going to end up is people are going to have some kind of membership reward pricing that every member gets. But to think it's going to get more complex than that in the near future on mass is ludicrous. I just don't see it happening. There's too many technological and educational barriers to get to there.
Well, that was the point of, is there a value proposition for the guest? Right.
Yeah. Right.
Did Calvin mention who the major hotel group CEO was who said hotels had better information on guests than Google? I couldn't find.
No, they didn't want to embarrass anybody. It was actually.
That's like a disqualifier if you're a hotel CEO. You need to lose.
There was a gentleman from Mexico that seemed to have an interesting opinion, and that was one of them. But I will challenge you on two fronts. Yeah, I will challenge this on two fronts. One, there are two leading things that I think will accelerate the conversation to this direction. One is we're lemmings. We follow the least path of resistance when it comes to the engagement process of discovery, okay? And so when Google comes up with a new fangled tool that gives it an easier convenience that we just push one button instead of having to push four buttons to get the banana, we're going to push the one button. So we're already patterned, all right? The second of it is that it only takes a critical conversion of technology, and the adoption comes because of that. So no, we're not in a position right now for unique individual pricing programs, but sure as heck, if I'm going to be rewarded for the value proposition you think I have, that I get a rate that I think I'm happy with, I'm sure as heck going to go into my Gmail, hit the button that says, get it right now at a rate nobody else gets, and I got it and it's taken care of and my credit card gets handled and all that stuff gets happened. Yeah, I'm going to push the one button for the banana. So, that idea is there. We're set up for that already. We're not fighting the process. We're a willing participant in the process. How fast that happens, I agree with you, Stuart. It ain't going to happen tomorrow, but if it did happen tomorrow, I'd probably do it. So anyway, but
it winds up being gamification, right?
Yeah, you're the banana button basher, Lauren. So
the views expressed on this show are not necessarily that of the. Yeah, there's one thing that came out of the discussion I thought was interesting. So in this parity issue war that we have, and I'll put one. Agoda is abusing the bejesus out of their position right now. It is a constant battle with their affiliates. Okay, it's an annoying pain in the ass of chasing them down and finding out who it is of their affiliates that's yanking their rate and tossing it in the market. And it's a fight process. Right. So one person in the audience raised their hand and pointed out that they do a 3 strikes you're out mentality. They do the perfunctory, here's my documentation off of, they'll do OTA strategy and they'll pull the screen captures and they'll show where the rate came out wrong and so forth. And they send it up to Agoda. And then they shut them off after the third one. They shut them off. We are not honoring you. We're blacking you out.
A hotel can do, a brand can't do.
A brand can't do, right. But the thing of it was is that
do that because they'll have a riot on their hands from all the franchisees who go, what happened to all my Agoda business?
Right. But this was a guy out of the audience. Actually, I'm sorry, it was a woman out of the audience that made this comment that this is what they did, and you got all these head nods like, oh yeah, let's fight the big guys, But to your point, a brand can't do that, but a hotel can. Is that a viable? You know what? I'm going to pull a trapdoor. You die, I die combination thing. I'm going to lose business from you just to prove the point that you shouldn't do this. Is that a viable strategy, or is that just a riot mentality?
If you have a real channel strategy, then you should be able to do that with any of your channels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no! Every Caribbean, every Mexican,
we have a terrible
Caribbean property is it has to do that because otherwise they will lose control of their rates through the wholesalers. Because again, these wholesalers are out there giving, ideally, it doesn't matter if it's Apple, if it's FunJet, all these guys are booking heavily through travel agents. It's all on a net rate basis. There are commissions. There's all sorts of stuff flying around through there. And they can go grab those rates and they get it on a net feed. They promise that it's going to be bundled with air, but that's not getting bundled on their platform and things like that. And it just, the stuff goes out and the bad actors have to be dealt with. They have to be called out and punished. And when I was at Mark Travel, that was a big factor on my job to get aggressive on that.
I'm going to go down
guys
a
like
bad rabbit hole
would not do it. Yeah.
I'm going to go down a bad rabbit hole for 1 second. Okay. And I realize I'm about to get pilloried for this. So let me get it out first and then you can beat the crap out of me. one of the exciting things about blockchain, right, is the idea of a smart contract. And if we get to a point where we can start to distribute inventory with smart contracts wrapped around them, then those problems could, in theory, go away. I don't think that's happening next year. I don't think that's happening in the next 5 years in all likelihood.
Right.
But if we can crack that nut, some of this there may, or with some other technological solution that, people are thinking through, et cetera. I mean, there's other ways to get there. But, we should have good general strategies that say people who don't play by the rules go away, or there's some technological thing that says you don't play by the rules, you can't sell the inventory in the first place. So I think this is a symptom of a current situation that I don't think we're talking about 3 years from now. That doesn't mean it doesn't suck for you tonight with your rooms. Don't get me wrong. It does mean that in the longer term, I see that this is something we'll look back on and go, oh yeah, remember when that used to happen?
Well, yeah. Well, the challenge with the blockchain thing is you need a unique identifier for each hotel, and you need everybody on the same smart contract platform. Valyn's smiling.
There's so many things that cause all kinds of problems there. I fully acknowledge
some
that.
of the stats that they threw out.
And the blockchain, the whole management thing was, hey, it's distributed. There's no central authority to go screw you over and take margins out of this and stuff like that, which is a nice idea. Like we were talking before, here's this nice ideal thing, but then when somebody in the blockchain world is acting improperly and the hotel can go, I want to cut them off, and the brand is like, I can't really do that, it's not going to work. You aren't going to have enough. You can't get to 51% consensus of every hotel on the planet to go punish that one guy, right? So
the point being, it does go back to what is your distribution strategy as an individual hotel, and an individual hotel can absolutely say, I do not want to be distributed on this channel. I'm shutting them off.
Yeah.
Now, they made some interesting stats. They said, and this is because Triptease was the host of the operation, obviously, and they're in the facilitation of the rate parity things as well. 35% on average for all their base of tracking, you lose. You get diluted by being undercut by OTAs, and they said, and then upwards, depending upon upwards of 70%, you get undercut. Mr. Ed,
I love when companies just don't care and just will throw out numbers without any fear of anyone questioning them. I'm just going to call bullshit on those statistics. Like,
okay. Well, that's why I'm bringing it up.
First of all,
it's like, this is what they went up from the pulpit. They went over and said, they said on average from all their data, 35.5%, is being undercut by OTAs on any given particular time, and uncontracted OTA wholesalers, obviously, and as high as 75%.
So they're saying
the
rate parity violations by some actor in the market.
Yes.
That they can see on their platform.
If you work with Rico or Agoda, then yes, you are falling victim to this.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. They were talking about the fact that, one of the neat things I found that was interesting, and this goes back to not being positive necessarily about Triptease in this concept because they're very expensive to do. A lot of people in the audience were talking about the triangulation of provability that they use, like OTA strategy, Triptease, and there was another platform that it popped out of my head, that they triangulate these parity violations to validate when they send it to them. No real effect. They're sending this stuff out, but there was this growing consensus within the audience that we need to be as holding them accountable to their violations as they try to hold us accountable in our violations of parity, and push it back into their faces saying this and that and the other.
Isn't that why Marriott bought Starwood?
That's Avery.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. It truly is in that sense. It's funny they talk about the fact.
Yeah. It depends on the market, though. If you're in a down market, a lot of these hotels could care less if there are rate parity violations as long as they're getting the business, right? Yeah. It just, all of that discipline goes away completely, and the willingness to trade volume for anything just goes. Yes, in peak periods there may be some more discipline, but again, a lot of last major downturn, what got cut out of all these major hotel groups? The guys who were doing the rate auditing, right? And most of those groups did not get rebuilt. So
and I mean, and that's a good point. This show that you went to is an artifact of the fact that we've been on an upswing of more demand every year, more rate every year, for a very extended period of time. Right. Like Robert said, at the first sign of, a full percentage point drop in demand, like, you're not going to hear anyone talking about this stuff, because they're just going to be talking about how to make sure that they're keeping their base and, getting theirs. And I don't have time to deal with that stuff. They have time to deal with it now because demand is just there, and they're optimizing the fact that there's way more demand than their supply can give. So, let's spend time optimizing it and thinking about it. But I mean, Airbnb came out of a financial crisis. Priceline came out of a financial crisis. Who disappeared? I mean, think about before the last financial crisis, rate shopping was a massive product that every hotel had multiple versions of. None of those companies. I mean, where's Rubicon? Where's AnyRate? Where's Rate Tiger's rate shopping stuff? I mean, all of that stuff went by the wayside, and it wasn't because the tech wasn't solid, and it wasn't because there was a shift in behavior. It's because during the financial crisis, everyone went, we're not paying for this. We need whatever we can get. We're not worried about that right now.
When you call Triptease and OTA Insight a type of rate shopper?
But they're all birthed after the last financial crisis. So I'm kind of calling out that if the next financial crisis or next pullback is a severe one, you'll probably see a lot of them disappear as well, or get pulled into other systems. I mean, because we've watched this time and time again. I mean, Rubicon was a huge company. They were really big. They had like 15,000 hotels using their rate shopping. AnyRate, even though they were small, they had about 6,000 hotels using their platform. Rate Tiger, that's how they started as a company. They were a rate shopper. So I got to say, like, it's great that they're talking about this, but, how about we talk about what are you going to do next year or the year after, whenever it starts, there is going to be some level of pullback. What are you going to do for that? How are you going to take all this brain space that you've spent on these efforts and make sure that they stay? Because they're quality efforts. These are good pursuits. This is auditing quality of business. How do you get that to survive a pullback?
Yeah.
No, there was a couple. There was the perfunctory economics person at the end for the closing keynote, and they made a point to say that we are at 9.2 years into what will be then a record-setting 10 years, which is the longest positive economic string ever in the history of everything. So, if you want to talk about fortune telling, are we going to be hitting that threshold and passing it, or hitting that threshold and and that's it. Then at that point, because everything that's being said, and I think this was in the Smith Travel conference in Nashville, because a lot of the data was rehashed again, is that the next 1 to 2 years, we're pretty much going to be doing what we're doing now in some capacity, variation form, or what have you. But after that, all bets are off in the sense of what really is going to happen after the next couple of years for it. There was a couple of things, and actually, Tim, as credit to you, I called them Timisms on my notes. I literally said Timisms. Okay. Loyalty is a two-way street, not a one-way from just the guest perspective, okay, which I thought was profound in that sense. Big data is mostly about correlations. Small data is about causation. And I thought that was optimism.
I don't know that I buy that one.
Okay, I liked it. I thought it actually made sense to me. So why don't you think that's
okay, I could go with it. Okay, I'll go with it. Thinking about it.
Big data is about correlations. Small data is about causation.
Big data is based on inferences, right? You're looking at a huge sample of data. You're looking at patterns to have some sort of predictive capability. Where small data, you're looking for some sort of explicit signal, right? So
okay. And the last thing I'm going to
customize.
And the last thing I'm going to drag through this is, do you remember Brad Brewer? He was with Milestone. He started his own thing, Brewer Digital Marketing. The reason why I bring this up is, remember when we were talking about schema, Ed, and you said somebody should grab that and monetize that with the new schema builds? for hotels that they can standardize it. Oh, Brad did it.
Yeah.
He did a WYSIWYG. You can't really see on the screen. He did a WYSIWYG. But what was really cool that made the oohs and the ahs for people that attended the workshop that he was doing was the WYSIWYG. What he was really pushing wasn't that you're just building schema with a WYSIWYG, is the usability of what you can do with schema now. And one of the great points he made out of this is that you can create custom schema per page, obviously, okay? But in that schema that you can create, you can really define the context of what gets presented in the search results, and including things like parameters of dates of opportunity, check-in, check-outs, functionality of click-throughs when you click on the date opportunities, specific data, because Google is so much, I mean, they're going to bypass schemas fast enough with their programs, but right now schemas seems to be the lead point of conversation with them. But you can define a lot of your individual page content specifically to what it is message-wise. It's almost like creating an ad by using the schema. And that got a lot of oohs and ahs out of the group because most people didn't, one, understand what schema was. Two, they didn't understand that there was a functional value proposition to what it could do other than just generalized search result values, and really use it as a weaponization of messaging. So that was the last thing.
Schema's great, right? Schema's awesome. There's a lot of benefit. We try to encourage all our clients to put as much schema on their sites as possible. But to say you can control what Google's showing is a little disingenuous.
That's wishful thinking.
There's actual components to it that are usable that aren't being used, like check-in, check-out times.
Oh, for sure. Reviews, there's a lot of stuff, especially in the local. But you know, at the end of the day, I think it's more about making the data, you know, the semantics of the data more understandable by any kind of robot that's just scanning the site.
Well, and like the Google travel filters are out now, the ability to show what you're needing to do in the area when you're there and all that stuff. Yeah, that's schema driven right now.
Yeah, it is, and it goes beyond just a name, address, and phone. Right, it goes beyond just the default hotel schema. You should be marking up your amenities and you know, your operational hours and stuff like that. For sure, you should be doing it. But
and having logic on the relationship between the pages within your site, which gets back to the site architecture, everything where all of that is the navigation, the menuing, the schema, all that stuff needs to work together. So yes, the robots can figure out what is the site about, and maybe the humans too. Right? It's all about making it very clear and logical.
You know, we haven't been doing that in web design this whole time. Why would we start now?
Well, when it goes to pure voice, right? Just give me give me a hotel in wherever, downtown LA, the 17th to the 20th of November. They're going to come back with a recommendation, right? One, and you might say, nah, what else? Well, but otherwise, it's going to be
the snippets are driving the voice engagement. We know that. Oh, by the way, you'll all be very proud of me. There was this guy that came in incredibly cocky, arrogant on the first day closing keynote. And he literally came in to walk on stage, and he's like, "Hey, I don't normally share my notes, so sorry, you're not going to see my slides. And I haven't been here all day." But he just had this attitude, like, "Aren't you glad? You're privileged that I'm on stage." And he starts talking, and he asks questions, and he was asking, "Who would book just by voice alone?" And I go raise my hand because he was trying to make the counterpoint because he just kind of irritated me. So I mean, it's like I would. It's like, and I gave him the caveat only if it would talk back with me, so I could clarify it, and only on certain types of travel would I consider that option. Well, he didn't like any of it, but he's like, well, you're crazy. So anyway, it turned into a personal challenge of mine to prove him right.
Aside from your mental state.
He wasn't wrong.
He wasn't wrong. I wanted to prove him right for the right reasons, though. I mean, don't call me crazy unless you really want to define that.
That's irrelevant, yeah.
But he did bring up the topic of voice control and so forth, and it's kind of funny because there was this huge dysfunctionality of how he was describing it, but there is a value proposition that if you can use voice to clarify intent, where you're using as an engagement of as an assistant perspective, not as a replacement to dealing directly with someone or discovering in all context, then it has a value proposition. Like you can ask for things like, am I late for my flight? When is my flight leaving? Has it been delayed? Those are assistant type things you can do. Not like, hey, I want to go to New York and trust that it's going to completely take care of all the nuances that you want to take care of by simply asking that question.
And you said the key word, which is trust.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is the problem that is going to wreck this version of voice that everyone says is coming. The version that Robert talked about saying, I want a hotel room in LA from this date to this date, it's lack of trust. Because here's the thing, even as it starts to go that way, where consumers start to get comfortable with doing it that way, guess what's going to happen? Someone's going to pay more to be the one who gets recommended, even though they don't deserve it. It's like when you go to TripAdvisor and you see the 190th hotel in the market listed first as a sponsored. It's like
a little flag that says promoted. Yes.
Yeah. A tiny flag that says promoted. This is the problem is the monetization of the platform is going to ultimately stop it getting to this Shangri-La that everyone keeps talking about when they talk about voice, how, you're not going to need any of the things you need today because you're just going to be able to talk to a machine and it will book what is a very complicated set of decisions for you.
Yeah.
Well,
yes and no, but I think the OTAs are already doing a lot of that where, okay, they've got, as we said before, they have all this data, right? They got massive amount of data. They've got great predictive analytics that are kind of figuring it out. I think what they wind up doing is they will do more monetization off of the supplier side going, you're looking for people with such and such characteristics. You've got to, offer lower pricing, maybe for consumer benefit. You got to give us bigger margin. You've got to, pay for the ad, whatever. They'll go monetize that. So then that result winds up kind of being they know, I think in many cases, they already know this is probably the best choice for the consumer. And then they're somewhat modifying that based on, is that the best one for, Booking or Expedia to go put at the top of the list and recommend, right?
Well,
so that's going to be that wane, and I think the ones who go, you know what, we are going to close the booking and earn that trust by giving that consumer the best. Maybe we'll give up $2 of earnings on this, but we'll get the customer lifetime value.
No, because they could be doing that today in their current models. Nothing's changing except for the input device.
If we can take a step back for a second, right? And Ed, you're going to like this because I'm going to say nice things about Flip 2 for a second, right? Thanks. The problem when we get down to this is we keep saying the best. There is no the best because the hotels aren't sufficiently differentiated. There are 5 or 7 or 10 hotels that can be the best because they're all kind of the same, right? Mm-hmm. And that causes a problem for the hotels because they're not sufficiently differentiated that the guest is going to give a rat's ass which box of rooms they stay in. Right. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's the bigger problem. Because if you provide a differentiated service, then your guests are going to talk about it and they're going to tell their friends and family and fans and followers and all that other kind of crap. And then you don't have to worry about does voice list you first.
Right. And the other challenge, so if you go one more step down into the process, which is what's the best room, right? So I picked a big box. I said, I want that big box. And it says, here's your best room, right? The voice comes out of the device or out of my ears or whatever. It says, I've got the best room for you. And that's what the OTAs are doing today, right? They're presenting whatever rooms the hotels make available on that channel. And you don't really know if you, again, going back to Ed's point about trust, how do you know what's best for me, right? I mean, so then you start talking about personalization and you actually start going back to Calvin's points, right, about selling by person as opposed to selling by whatever. And so are we now going to wrap personalization into this stuff? I mean, that's where it's really going to drive value, right, is not only do you know what I want and you know why I'm traveling, but in a way, the thing would have to ask me a couple of questions. Hey, Valyn, is this a business trip? Hey, Valyn, is anybody going with you? Hey, Valyn, so there's a series of questions that really, because I travel for different reasons. Everybody does.
Right. Well, you're the same person, but with different preferences.
But let me play devil's advocate on that. Not that saying that anyone can do this now, but let's talk about Google, right? If I have been to the HSMAI digital marketing conference and their dates have moved, right? They've been February and January, so that complicates. Let's just say they were always the same week, or the Focusrite conference would be a good one. Yeah. Always. So you do that. It knows, hey, this one alternates between Los Angeles and Hollywood, Florida, or whatever. It figures that out and goes, in the past, that person has stayed, they've searched for 4-star and above hotels with 8+ booking.com ratings or whatever the case may be, right? They've sorted it in ascending price order, and this is how their decision process has been made. Those are some pretty, good signals based on actual booking, booking activity, right? Those are strong indicators. So you can kind of go, yeah, he's looking for the cheapest 4-star hotel in a certain proximity with whatever, and that may be good enough. Now that's eons ahead of what anybody's doing right now, but groups like
and probably isn't eons away timing wise. I mean,
right. Well, and Google
for Google to do that, the pieces for to a degree Expedia to do that aren't years from now.
Oh no,
right?
because I'll give you an example. Because I am the hotel industry's worst nightmare when it comes to gaming. How do I get the lowest rate? That's
the new tagline for Rock Cheetah. The hotel
worst
nightmare.
I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Your pricing strategy is a catnip toy to us.
And Tim.
The funny part is, it is so true. Robert is probably the antithesis of, if you want to know how to make the system not work, find this guy. He knows how to crack the code.
I will break it. Exactly. But so what do I do for this? And I've done it successfully for 3 years now, right? You go out early on booking.com and you find the cheapest, fully refundable, cancelable, decent hotel. And sometimes I'll go to 3-star. So right now I'm booked at a Hilton Garden Inn, right? For 4 nights. Is that where I really want to stay? Maybe not, but I can stay for 4 nights for $560, including everything. That's, hotel fees, everything. And it's in a good location and it's just fine. I've stayed there before, right? That Garden Inn there's nothing wrong with it. Is it really great and aspirational? No, not really. But what did I do last year? I wound up staying at Citizen M because they had some sort of insanely stupid
The revenue manager blinked at the wrong time.
Robert.
And I jumped on. Now I did pay a premium, right, over whatever the rot gut rate was, but yeah, I wound up getting a great deal. So I will go do that and go, toss that thing aside. And who knows if it's hot water? Who knows if it's whatever, right?
But here's the thing.
It's a game. It's a game.
You're talking about.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Hold on. Oh, I was holding.
No, go ahead. You were going to say something. I interrupted. Go ahead. I'll add it in just a second.
Talking about a specific type of trip and a very educated traveler.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The average person who goes on the same trip every year and is not an educated traveler is staying in the group block because they don't want to go through all of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So sure, you can automate the room block. Like, would you like to book your room block? Sure, I'd like to book my room block that the group picked at the group price. But, this isn't the type of impact that the audiences are hearing in their heads when people talk about the coming of voice. What they're concerned about is the person who is taking their family to Orlando and is willing to ask just the question, which is the best hotel to go to Disney? What? If that's actually a problem, if that question is ever a common, this is the question that powers all the business into Disney, all of the travel industry around Disney and Disney have a problem because that means people no longer care about the nuanced differences.
Where should I stay on my honeymoon? Right?
Right.
I mean, yeah.
I'm sorry. High stakes trips are not going to be done on voice.
Not in the near term.
Unless there's an incredibly high degree of trust, and it's who they're booking with, right?
Well,
so
okay.
hang on. If you're a Silicon Valley CEO, right, and you can just go and leave a voicemail and go, Stacy Small, elite travel gal, right? Stacy, get me the best hotel in Bora Bora. We're going for a week. Do this. Go. That's fine. They'll do it. And that's fine. It's kind of the personal assistant. If you can,
but remember the value proposition of what we're talking about, and this is the OTA value proposition: discoverability. And I'll add this with a caveat of actual technique to this. I cannot win Midtown New York hotel. Will not get it. Never will have it. Won't have it. Can't pay for it. Can't get it. You can never have the content. But sure as heck, I'm on page 1 for Midtown Hotel with a spa. Why? Because it's a string of concept of what they're looking for discoverability. What's the hotels that have spas? Now, I'm in that consideration phase, which is a lot better than having not. It's that on-off switch mentality. Am I in the mix or am I not in the mix? Period. Just getting into the game is the first starting point. And to that, I'd ask a couple of other strategy points. Do you find it viable to say, at all circumstances, regardless of whether you bottomed out on a rate and you're still willing to guarantee this, that you will guarantee your discoverability of rate with a 10% bonus, no matter where you find it for whatever you find it for? Is it worth that value to offer that flat base? Always will I give you benefit for booking with me, no matter what rate you have to show me. As a matter of fact, you may not even have to show me the rate. Just tell me what you found, and I'll guarantee it just as long as I get you in my channel. Is it worth it?
If you're good at rate management,
yeah, absolutely.
Because they're in your funnel, right? You get them. They didn't go elsewhere. Even if it is, and we talked about rate parity earlier, even if it is some stupid ass, excuse the French, bottomed out, shouldn't have been in the market, but it was pawned out by some bad affiliate, and somebody saw it in some hotel finder somewhere. Okay, and they pitched to you that they found well below what you're currently trying to margin on, and you still have to give them 10% on top of it. Is it still worth it?
Right. Yeah, and you know what? If you have an arrangement with that, now the thing is with the bad performing affiliate or the bad behaving affiliate, you can't just suddenly refuse to pay Agoda. Poor Tim Hughes, right? He's gotten beaten on today. So, but you can't pay them.
For letting go. Now the other question I have.
Well, I mean, are they trying to enforce it? Somewhat, but can they enforce? The bad actors on it. It's not really in their best interest, right?
They can code. They know who exactly connects to the.
No. It's actually very hard. Having had to do that, it can be very, very difficult. It's just
that's the burden of having the opportunity to have the rates that they have. But let me ask the second question. Is in this world of it, is it worth giving a 24-hour? You don't have to pay me guarantee. Just hey, book. Don't have to give me a method of payment. Just book with me now, and if you don't get back with me within 24, 48, 72, whatever you want to say hours, I'll just drop it off.
I mean, it depends. It depends entirely on market. It depends. That's a very hard question to answer.
That's a good one to test on a hotel by hotel basis.
Yeah.
Trust had that in their new CRS before they got bought by Sabre. But the new CRS that Trust was releasing, they had two interesting concepts. One was that, and the other was YOLO, which was like, I don't care about the minor details of this. Give me the coolest thing for me. And it was a YOLO button. Yeah. So, I mean, they were testing. They were starting to head in that direction before they got gobbled up. But yeah.
I mean, Lauren, to your question, we're gonna, in this environment, there's a hotel out there where the correct strategy is we charge the same rate every night, all year long, for every room. There's an environment where there's a lot of strategies that could work for individual hotels or small sets of hotels that aren't going to work for the vast majority, right? So it comes down to what is correct in your specific circumstance.
Yeah, if you're a big dog in market and you call and command the rate and the demand cycle in the market, you don't have to put these hooks out. I mean, flat out.
I'll give you a real world example of that specifically. I will give you an absolute real world example of this specifically. When I worked for Wyndham, obviously we've talked about this before, but we had lots of places where there were 6 hotels in a tertiary market, right? And 5 of them were ours. And so, we would actively encourage the franchisees, don't do anything stupid with the OTA in terms of getting position. You're on the first page. You're going to be in one of the top 6 positions, right? Yeah. So they could play by a very different set of rules than somebody who's at the, who's in New York City, but isn't at the corner of, Park and 42nd, or isn't at the corner of 33rd and 7th, right? I mean, where you're a little bit more off the beaten path of Manhattan, and you need to, everything's relative. Everything's the local market, So
well, and it's
just
trust, and the trust factor.
Correct.
Yeah, Edbra, is so huge because now a lot of the OTAs are, especially like if you start looking at the hot wires and the Priceline, express deals and things like that, where it's opaque. They're getting very creative in terms of their zones, right? Because they're stretching them out. They are strapped for inventory. And all of a sudden you go, yeah, I want this hotel, this Times Square hotel. Well, you're getting the DoubleTree Midtown, which is down somewhere, kind of past it's past the Port Authority bus terminal on 8th or 9th or something like that. And it's not exactly Times Square, right? It's a general area. It's within a mile or whatever. But I mean, if you violate people's trust
but don't forget, within a mile of some parts of Manhattan is, Hoboken, is Jersey City.
Exactly. Yeah. For the ones wwho still have the focal point and radius search, yes.
Correct.
And didn't move to polygons, yes.
Right.
I guess the reason I bring this up because the purpose of the strategy choices, and you're right, there's always a what if solution to any market for any product. There's always variations to it, and the creative ones at that. But these are considerations for markets I say are based on the idea of when you're in that set of do I offer, don't I offer, rate parities, rate violations, competitive market space, and so forth. You're looking for guest experience as the key element. We know going to behavior that there's a Robert in the world that's going to book 5 hotels and cancel 4 of them. There's a 65% cancellation rate in average in New York City right now for most channels because they flood what they book and they purge what they don't. That's a process. So you take yourself into a viable decision-making process for them, offering them a no-need-to-pay situation. Is that a viable tool option for them? Just as much as it is to say that there's always a guaranteed percentage, we honor it no matter what mentality.
Test it and see, right? I mean, realistically, there's not an answer to this. You have to have a strategy for your property and test some things and see what works, right?
Right.
How do you
work and that strategy.
Blink and you put a bad rate out,
But it has to be tested. It has to be tested in your market, though, because the behaviors of the competition may do. If you've got a competitor, your biggest problem with something like that is you make it real easy. They're on your site. You've got them. All you got to do is hang on to them. And if you've got some, opportunistic competitor who goes, I trash the price at the, 4 days out or whatever, and they've done testing to figure out, I'm pulling all this business from wherever. That's great, right?
And actually, I'm gonna throw Valyn a bone. I mean, this is a great opportunity to do something like differentiate your property, and then once you have the reservation, start upselling the hell out of them to give them opportunities to get something where they see such a value that I don't want to cancel because now I'm in a suite. Now I have this. Now I have this. Now I have this. That I, as the hotel, made money on. And it actually worked out to be a much better deal than, these people over here were giving me $10 less. Well, sure, it's $10 less, but I'm getting so much more. So, here's an idea. Differentiate the offering to the customer. Call me crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And that's that's some of the challenges is that the OTAs have access to live inventory to be able to see what's available and book it. But in most cases, they don't have access to the inventory to modify. So most of the third parties don't have a way to upsell, like Expedia, Booking.com. They can build their own, but they still have to have an agreement with the hotel, or the hotels have to push it manually through their portal, which is past the booking stage, right? So there's a lot of talk now because the booking engines aren't great at this point. There's not a lot of upselling capacity. Some of them are better. Well, as always, some of them are better than others. But in the booking path, merchandising inside the booking path is not as. I mean, we've got 1 or 2 customers that do it. Most of our customers are pre-arrival upselling and front desk upselling. There's a tremendous opportunity for expanding merchandising in the booking path. But you got to have access and visibility into what's available for sale at that point.
Yeah, right. And the CRS needs to have true modify capability as opposed to cancel rebook. And you start doing things like, what's a great opportunity? Hey, extend into the weekend and get whatever. right? You know, something really as Lauren was saying, a spa treatment. Hey, we did this. We got them through the funnel. They wound up on the spa landing. But this is it. Hey, can we extend this stay and give them a spa treatment or something? If you have to cancel and rebook, and all of a sudden that pricing is now different, or that rate plan that they were on is closed out, they may not be able to cancel, rebook into it.
That's right.
Because
that's
even if it's on a block, if it's on an allocation, right? Because the allocation's full, the systems aren't smart enough to figure out, oh, you're going to drop out, so there would be one. It's okay. They're actually blocking their own ability to change. It's really bad.
And that's the challenge of these these legacy CRSs. They don't have they sell by room type or room class if they group the room types. They don't have the opportunity to sell by attribute or by something else. And so, Amadeus and IHG have both made noises publicly about selling by attribute using the new Amadeus system. We'll see what happens with that. But I mean, that's the value proposition of products like ours and others out there, is that we sort of extend that sell platform to be able to allow the sale by attribute. Challenge there is that whoever's managing the house has to understand. So if you sell a certain package, but you say for an additional $50, we'll give you a water view room, right? Not changing the package, just adding that attribute on. You've got the fulfillment. Then the fulfillment and the operations has to be there, right? So that you actually give them that water view and that package.
And I'm a loyalty, a pretty high tier loyalty member, and hey, I get to check in early. And now what are we doing when we're cleaning these rooms? We got to make sure we got a clean water view room, and we better get the other really tricky stuff.
But I mean, my favorite example on all of this. Sorry, my favorite example on all of this, just real quick, is we talk about loyalty, we talk about all these things, and I've said this on the show more than once, so sorry for repeating myself. But I always look at something like Amazon Prime. Amazon gets people to join their loyalty program, and they get them to pay to do it. And the reason that the customer does it is because they legitimately see a value. We keep coming back to this word again and again and again and again and again of what's the value to the guest. So, Lauren, your question gets to how do you get them to talk to you in the first place? And there's lots of ways to get them to talk to you in the first place. The question is, how do you get them to continue to engage and actually, create a greater value for them to want to stay there more than they want to save $10 by going to the guy across the street?
So do we know, I know that IHG has a pay-in loyalty program called Ambassador, the Ambassador program, which is a legacy from Intercontinental when Intercontinental was a standalone brand. Right. When they were, I guess, owned by Pan Am or whatever it was. So we occasionally, so IHG is one of our customers, ambassador level members should not be exposed to an offer. So they should not see a call to action through any of the exposure points. Occasionally one gets through, and mostly it's because the loyalty code wasn't present in their reservation. And so we didn't know they were ambassadors, so we exposed an offer. And I will tell you that ambassador members get really angry when they see an offer. And so what that tells me is that they are getting some kind of value. I don't know what the fees are for the ambassador program. I don't think they're super high. I don't know, but there must, and it's still there. I mean, it exists. I just recently saw when I was on IHG.com, I saw a promo to join the ambassador club. So it's still viable. So there must be something there for people to pay money on an annual basis, and they must be getting something out of it.
Yeah, I can tell you that, though. The top tier of most rewards programs are the absolute worst customers, because they are so ultra sensitive.
They're so entitled.
University, and constantly feel like they're not being respected for the tier that they accomplished. And
it's,
I'm not top tier on United, but I am platinum. And let me tell you, when I get a bad seat or a bad experience, I am the pissiest SOB you will ever want to meet. I'm not gonna lie. I'm always I try to be nice to the people who are actually serving me, but I tweet at United all the time when I get crappy service from United, because I'm like, I'm platinum, man.
Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Two things. One is,
I agree.
I have to go.
Yeah, I have to go as well.
Yeah,
Mindful
Y'all
of
have a
time.
great
I
weekend.
want to make sure that everybody understands what time it is for us. Ed, thank you as always for it. I do want to say, Mr. Stewart, that you were not neglected in this conference. We were actually commented on twice, once by me, another by another person, because there was a discussion about how many companies now are looking to build their own booking platforms. And they went over and quite easily said, oh, yes, but they were very quick to say, but be careful what you wish for, because if you build it, you get what you build, but that's not the problem. The problem is the consistency, the adaptability, the progressive continuous growth, so forth and so on. So be careful what you wish for, because, yeah, you can build your own thing. You think you got it, but you got to keep the thing going forevermore after that. And it's not worth it. And that's where you came back in, where they start talking about, it's like you got to look for some very innovative platforms out there that are really looking at trying to solve the problems rather than just get into the space. And you came up a couple of times. So congratulations for that. I don't know if we have time to hit the row, Robert. I mean, like I said, we're a little bit past everything. Mr. Tim, thank you. If people want to know where they can find you, where can they find you, sir? And your podcast?
TimPeter.com, TimPeter.com/podcast, at TCPeter on Twitter.
Excellent. Valyn, you said you had to wave out too as well.
Yep.
Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
So more information about Nor1 on nor1.com. I am Valyn.Perini. Well, Valyn Perini with or without the dot on just about every channel.
Outstanding. And Mr. Ed had to duck out quick, so we'll have to say Mr. Edward StOnge is at flip.to. And also, if you want to know anything about college football in Florida, you can go to at Edward StOnge.
No. You need to say for whatever. Just pick somebody besides UCLA.
Oh yeah.
Florida State,
Miami.
Yeah,
Florida
State, Miami.
Yeah. Mr. Robert, if they want to know about you and Rock Cheetah, what is it? What was his tagline now, Tim? What was the tagline we gave Rock Cheetah?
The hotel industry's worst nightmare.
Worst nightmare.
Yeah. Where can they find you, sir?
I've bought that URL. It's a little long, but I can work with it. So.
And it's not as long as Lauren's URL.
Exactly.
How about long URLs? I'm the king on that one. So rockcheetah.com and where else?
Robert K. Cole on social media.
Excellent. And Mr. Stuart Butler, sir, for them to find you and your amazing podcast, where can they find you, sir?
You can find us anywhere online at Fuel Travel. If you want to check out the podcast, we're doing an episode today on influencer marketing and all the hype around that. So fueltravel.com/podcast. I'm hoping I haven't finished the notes yet. I got to do that.
And for archives of this show and all of our shows, all 164 previous to this, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live, where you'll see the links to all of this year and links to the archives of the years past. With that in mind, show number 165. Thank you all. We went a little farther than that. I appreciate the latitude for that. And we will be going to show number 166 next week, Friday, 11:30 in the morning on Eastern time. Till then, thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.